Thanks for having me. My name is Eric Psinski. I work at the University of Michigan Center for Entrepreneurship. I manage what's called our M-Engage program. I'll go into detail with what that is in a minute, but that is the role that I play. Who are we? Why are we here? What do we do? More or less, the education of students at the undergraduate and graduate level for entrepreneurship skill sets, innovation, mindsets, and teaching them how to be startup founders and entrepreneurs post-graduation. With that being said, we completely recognize the majority of students that come through our courses and programs will still go into industry, but having the mindset that we prepare them for with learning how to think as your own brand as an entrepreneur undoubtedly benefits them as they go forward no matter what career they go into. The concepts of how we do it, teaching experiences and resources. We run about a dozen classes at the undergraduate level and about a half dozen classes at the graduate level. In addition to that, we teach over at the medical school as well as the law school with commercialization, patent startups, and so on and so forth. The experiences that we offer are well versed outside the classroom. So student treks, one-on-one mentoring experiences, taking them to meet alumni at local companies, taking them to Grand Rapids, so on and so forth. Resources, funding, space, opportunities to connect with alumni and entrepreneurs like you. At the core of it, as you can imagine, teaching is where we get our bread and butter. About 5,000 students have come through over the past 5 years. A dozen of those courses at the undergraduate level contribute towards the minor in entrepreneurship, which at the university, it's hard for me to believe still, the only formal degree program as it currently stands for entrepreneurship is a minor at the undergraduate level. We're developing a certificate for the graduate level, but that is not in place yet. In addition to those courses, there's also a study abroad program that we launched this year in Singapore and will likely do next year in another geography to be determined. That is putting 20 students in Singapore over the course of 6 weeks to learn about entrepreneurship in East Asia, innovation in those markets, and how to connect to the global economy from them. With that being said, you'll notice on the top of any banners or any logos we have, it says College of Engineering. We are administratively housed in the College of Engineering, but we service the campus as a whole. So 50% of the students are engineering students who come through, and the other half are a combination of liberal arts, business, the sciences, so on. Kinesiology actually is a big major that we come through the office. Graduate program, about 1,000 students have come through over the past 5 years. As I mentioned, the new certificate program that'll come online. And this is really aimed at complementing the education that students in the School of Nursing, Chemistry, Law are getting that is not necessarily tech focused, that is not innovation focused, and is much more the practical skill sets that they would get in a STEM education. Research is a fundamental component of our office. How many of you have heard of an I-Corps program? Is that familiar to anybody? Okay, a couple of you. The I-Corps is a program funded and then administered by universities. It's funded by the National Science Foundation, administered by 7 different universities across the country, U of M being one of them. Started in 2012 along with Georgia Tech. This program essentially trains faculty members to think about research that they're doing in terms of its commercial viability and not just the theoretical application that it might have. So it runs them through an intense 7-week course where they are paired with an entrepreneur as well as a graduate student who does a lot of the customer interviews for them. And it's strongly focused on the idea of validating the sustainability of the technology or research they're working on, customer discovery, and MVP, and some of the basic concepts that you otherwise would never think of if you were just in a research mindset. You can see some of the numbers of the folks who have been trained through that. Follow-on funding, obviously, is a crucial metric for any organization that does training for entrepreneurship. We're pretty proud of our mark of 14 million. But the bottom note is something that is really exciting taking place over the next couple months and into the fall. It's called Tech Lab. M-City, who I presume a lot of you have probably heard of before, the autonomous vehicle test track in Ann Arbor, we've partnered with them to launch a tech incubator for automotive transportation-related startup technologies and companies. We just completed a pilot program with ZenDrive, a company you may have heard of out in California, and we now are recruiting new startup companies for the fall to come into that. In addition to getting access to the M-City resources in the space, they also are allocated for student interns by our office to work with them from the College of Engineering. That's a picture of M-City in case you weren't familiar with it. It's just Plymouth Road in 23. It's an amazing facility that even us internally have to fight to get the chance to get into. So hopefully if you come down, give me a shout, and maybe it's a easier way to get in. We have a lot of voices asking for it. The experiential learning. This is the role that I more or less play within this office. So I manage our community, our co-curricular programs, and what I really look at and what I believe is the glue that pulls all of this together. The program that I manage, M-Engage, is the fueling source for all the other entities that go on with academics and commercialization. This takes place through a couple different means. Jumpstart grants are funding resources that we have for students who have startup ideas. There's a couple students in the audience who were here tonight, and those students are eligible to apply for up to $2,500 in funding for startup ideas. It can be used for patents, it can be used for travel, it can be used for customer discovery, etc. And the startup is a pitch competition that we have every spring. If any of you are ever in Ann Arbor, I welcome you to come down to it. We award over $18,000 in funding over the course of 3 rounds in the spring to students who have startup ideas. Woodside Distributors was a team that won just 2 weeks ago. They've already achieved over $2 million in revenue, and they're still, I think, in their junior year of college. The incubators and accelerators that we have. TechArb is our student incubator. In fact, it's the university's only formal student incubator. It's a joint space that we share with the Ross School of Business, ZLI, Zell-Lurie Institute. And the Desai Accelerator is a professionally aimed accelerator that is non-student focused, although student teams can apply, also located right near Central Campus in partnership with the business school as well. TechArb runs student teams through, about 10 student teams each cohort. There are 3 cohorts per year. They run through a 12-week session and then more or less get trained on how to implement their technology and implement their startup going forward. Those Jumpstart grants I mentioned, though, the one important note on that is that we've awarded over $160,000 in student startup grants over the past 5 years with them. It's a pretty good source of funding. ELP is a program we just launched and I co-launched with the director of our undergraduate programs this year. It's modeled off of Stanfield's Mayfield Fellows. More or less taking the approach that in addition to trying to quantify and ramp up numbers and get as many students as we can in our classes, we need to focus in on a cohort who's dedicated to entrepreneurship, dedicated to being startup founders in their careers, and really give them the full immersive treatment and training that they need to be successful. So this is an accelerated program over the course of a year. 20 undergraduate students, 50% from engineering, 50% from otherwise, will go through 2 classes with us. We bring in national speakers to talk to them on a small subset, and then place them in a startup internship throughout Michigan and the Bay Area. So taking this back and pressing pause for a moment, why am I here tonight? I'm here tonight because what you're doing in Traverse City is frankly incredible. To have this kind of crowd on a Tuesday night is no different than what you'd expect to see in Ann Arbor or Detroit. In fact, it's probably bigger, and that's absolutely mind-boggling. So I say all that because when I talk about programs like ELP with internship placements, or I talk about mentoring opportunities, or talking with student startups, or being on a review committee for those grants, I would love to have Traverse City friends involved in all those things. So by all means, let me know. And Ann Arbor friends too. So in addition to the ELP fellowship, we also advise 2 of the main student organizations on campus in addition to Shift, Empowered and MHACS. We don't advise Shift, I should clarify. Shift's their own entity. And then the M-Engage program is the one that I manage, as I talked about. We are primarily focused at engaging the alumni and the general entrepreneurship population throughout Michigan and then the Valley and the Bay Area as a whole. It's connectivity for the sake, not just of connectivity, but for plugging back into programming. That takes the tangible form of 3 student treks that I run every year. I take 50 to 60 students, I put them on a bus or a plane, and I immerse them in the ecosystems of Grand Rapids, with Start Garden, GR Current, Grid 70, all the places that are really taking root there. Same thing in Detroit. Russell came down to that event looking at Rocket Fiber and Invest Detroit and a lot of the other companies that are anchoring their growth. And then San Francisco with the millions of opportunities that are going on there to engage. If you have questions about that and why it's valuable, there's actually one of the students here tonight. He didn't know I'd call him out, so he looks a little bashful. Chris went on the Grand Rapids trek with us, and so he can talk a little bit about the experience that he had afterward, if you'd like. We'll probably do some new additions to that this year too, and taking students out to the East Coast, but we're always looking for new opportunities, and frankly, coming to Traverse City in the summertime would be a nice one to have. So I thought it was supposed to be warm this time of year, but not quite. Yeah. When I came into the U of M ecosystem, the biggest struggle I had was conceptualizing how this all makes sense. There's a million different things going on. How do they all fit together, and do they all fit together? So this was my attempt that I've gone through to try to conceptualize how our programs pipeline in with one another. The undergraduate student and the graduate student, as you can tell, pretty much go through the same experience with the exception of that fellowship program that we currently have for undergraduate students. And this is all aimed so that when they graduate, they can speak to the experience they had. They can speak to the idea of seeing the value in the programs and seeing what's going on in Ann Arbor, in Grand Rapids, and Detroit, and all throughout the state. And so they see that this is opportunity. You can go to San Francisco and you can be a small fish in a huge pond and make a very little dent. Or you can come to Traverse City and you can be a huge player in the opportunities and the transformation of what's going on here. And that's a pretty exciting thing that we're trying to pitch to our students. Not trying to pitch, but educating our students on, I should say. And just to simplify it a little bit more too, the different audiences that we serve on the left, the opportunities on the top, you'll see external partners on the bottom, which I would more or less consider everybody in this audience. There are a plethora of opportunities to get involved. So if you have an interest, if you have something you want to engage with, whether it be a student, connecting to other alumni, coming on campus, talking to a class projects, please let me know. We are always open and looking for those kinds of things. What does the future hold? Frankly, you tell me. I would love to talk to you folks, and I hope to during the social hour, about what we can do to get more students interested in Traverse City, to get more of them aware of what's going on, whether it be 2C New Tech or the companies that you have up here, and seeing what we can do to keep them here. That being said, thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
What's the ROI or the big things that have happened with your programs?
Great question. Has anybody heard of a company called SkySpecs? Okay, SkySpecs. So they're a drone company out of Ann Arbor that is comprised or was founded by students who came through our classes and were awarded one of our grants when they were in college still to work on the technology that they have that has now launched them into a full-blown business that's employed, I think, maybe 15 plus people in Ann Arbor. So there's a lot of examples like that, but that's a good one. Yes.
Yours that actually succeed, you incubate them on campus, right? You have some space for them.
Yeah, the tech garb space while they're students.
Or they can go into Ann Arbor to Spark or Michigan. I know that Traverse City is very interested in getting a more tech-based economy, and there's been talk about an incubator here in town. How would you see Michigan working with that particular program?
Well, I'll preface it with saying it's a much larger question than I'm probably in a position to fully answer. But with that being said, what I can tell you is this. The Grand Rapids trek that I talked about us doing, in 2014 we had 19 students who came on that. When I ran that this past October, I had 49 students who came on it. The same could be said for the alumni who participated and the companies who participated. Those are the trends that we see year after year with what's going on in West Michigan when we engage. So that led to about a month ago, President Schlissel and the Board of Regents holding, well, they were going to hold their meeting anyways, but they made sure to make a point of what we were doing in Grand Rapids while we were there. And now there's further conversation looking at how Michigan will engage in a more formal, structured way within Grand Rapids. So it doesn't answer your question in Traverse City, but I think it certainly leads to the notion that there's some exciting things going on in West and Northern Michigan. And with that being said, there's all the more opportunity, I think, for Michigan to be involved. I did have one other slide I put up. I cut it because I was a little worried about a red flag flying out. But I'll put it up now. So I started in this position in August. These are the activities that I've had in Western Northern Michigan since I've been here. Primarily west, as you'll see, but I'm looking to get further north here. So this is the start, hopefully. Other questions at all?
I have two questions.
Oh, yeah.
First one is that if I'm not mistaken, you threw out a couple of terms of lean startup.
What's that?
Lean startup.
Lean startup? I know the term, but go ahead.
Okay, so I guess I got it wrong. Second question, do you organize angel investors or venture capital to visit your campus?
Yeah, absolutely. So I work with venture capitals and angel investors and VC firms all the time to visit campus, pitch to classes, talk to classes, educate students. So the same way I would with a startup founder or an entrepreneur, we're always looking for those type of people.
Okay, and how often do you organize those tours for the investors?
Well, tours are certainly something we can set up. I don't have a formal tour program now for VCs to come in, but anytime there's interest in coming to campus, we're always entertaining those hosts. Primarily that's done, as you can imagine, September through April when the students are in session. It's pretty quiet throughout the summer, but absolutely, anytime. I'll leave my cards over on the table and you're welcome to come up to me anytime. We can talk about how to make that happen. Does that answer your question? Sure? Yes.
So what comes to mind for low-hanging fruit getting started in Traverse City? What's the first few things we could do to, I guess, partner with University of Michigan?
The students who you already have there, and you probably don't even know it. So students like the two who are here today, who have already, I don't know if you've been involved in any of the CFE programming, but you're involved in SHIP, so you're one of the ecosystem for sure. And then Chris has been involved in the programming. So actually tapping into the resources who are already making that connection and building the bridge by using the work that they're already doing would be low-hanging fruit. Furthermore, looking at the idea of hosting maybe a TC New Tech meeting down south, if that's a possibility, or taking an executive group down there for a tour or a meeting throughout our spaces. Those would be ideas, low-hanging fruit. Yeah. Those would be the easiest things that come to mind, but
Yeah.
absolutely. Yes.
Have you partnered with other universities, like I think of NMC being here, with other schools and trainings?
Yes, thank you. Great question. So the commercialization program that I mentioned, the training that they do actually takes place in partnership with plenty of other universities. In fact, the training they provide to faculty members has partnered with every university throughout the state at this point in time over the past 2 years to provide those training opportunities. So the Traverse City-based organizations and universities, we would welcome them to participate in those commercialization programs. Yes?
Let's say that someone, I have a daughter that's in Chicago. Is there anything going on there with this, or is that University of Chicago's territory or whatever?
No, it's all U of M territory. No, I say that in jest. We don't have any formal programs going on in Chicago right now, but when I talked about those student treks that we do, Chicago is one of the top of the list that always comes to mind just because of the huge alumni population we have there. With that being said, we also have remote mentoring opportunities for low-hanging fruit for people in Chicago or Traverse City who could participate as mentors for the student startups that are in TechArb right now, for the Jumpstart grant recipients, for the students in the ELP fellowship program.
Okay,
Yep, absolutely.
thank you.
Very welcome. Red flag?
Red
All right, red flag. All right.